He was a warlord. He was a conquering warlord.
Muhammad was a warlord, and I don't know what to do about that fact.
A world of terrorism, wars, border conflicts, massacres, hostage crises, organized crime, aggression. A world where innocent people need protection. Now imagine, an army invades your country. Your family is threatened, your children are in danger, your community is attacked, your people are being killed. You are responsible, not only for yourself, but for millions. What would you do? Turn the other cheek? Love your enemies? Or fight those who fight you? But do not transgress. Fight only until the aggression ends. If they stop, then stop. Now think carefully. Which guidance would you want? For your family? For your community? For your nation? History remembers one as the Peacemaker. History remembers the other as the Warlord. But if, in the moment of greatest responsibility, you instinctively turn to Muhammad's example, then perhaps the comparison was never a fair one. Critics praise the peace. They condemn the man who had to establish it. That is the accusation. Muhammad the Warlord. Jesus the Peacemaker. 4 words, 1 verdict, case closed. Or is it? Before asking, why did Muhammad fight? Ask instead, why didn't Jesus have to? Jesus restored. Muhammad established. Jesus inherited God's law. Muhammad had to establish God's law. Jesus inherited judges, courts, and a covenant nation. Muhammad had to establish judges, courts, and a covenant nation. Jesus restored an existing civilization. Muhammad founded a new one. And Muhammad fought because law, justice, courts, government, treaties, defense, peace, civilization itself had to be established before it could be preserved. Those are not the same missions. Why compare Jesus during the restoration of an existing covenant with Muhammad during the establishment of an entirely new one? That is not history. That is category error. Jesus was sent to the children of Israel, a nation that already possessed God's law, a nation that had drifted away. Jesus came to call them back to God, back to the covenant, back to obedience. He was a prophet of God, the Messiah, sent with revelation, sent with the gospel, sent to guide Israel back to the path they had abandoned. His own words leave little room for doubt. I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And again, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. That was his mission. So why compare his mission with the mission of a man sent to establish what did not yet exist? A nation, a state, a civilization, governed by God's law. And if that was Muhammad's mission, then one question becomes unavoidable. Could he have done that without becoming its leader? Think about it. Who establishes the law without authority? Who appoints judges without authority? Who settles disputes without authority? Who signs treaties without authority? Who defends a nation without authority? Who establishes justice without authority? No one. The mission itself required leadership. Not because Muhammad sought power, because a nation under God's law cannot exist without someone responsible for establishing it. That responsibility changed everything. Muhammad was no longer responsible. Only for teaching, he became responsible. For a community, its justice, its security, its survival. Now ask yourself another question. If that community came under attack, what was its leader supposed to do? Walk away or defend it? Jesus was persecuted. Muhammad was persecuted. Jesus' followers were persecuted. Muhammad's followers were persecuted. Neither raised an army. Neither ruled a state. Neither fought a war. The comparison still held. Then history took their missions in different directions. Jesus' earthly mission ended, while he remained a persecuted preacher. Muhammad's mission continued. A new community was born. A nation under God's law had begun to emerge, and with it came new responsibilities, not just to preach, but to govern, to judge, to protect, to preserve. For 13 years, Muhammad preached, not with an army, not with a government, not with a state, with words. His followers were beaten, tortured, killed, boycotted, driven from their homes. Their property was seized. Still, there was no armed resistance. Eventually, they left everything behind. They migrated to Medina, not to conquer, to survive. But even that wasn't enough. The persecution followed them. The threats followed them. The enemy followed them. Now ask yourself, if a community has endured years of persecution, if it has abandoned its homes, its wealth, its families, and the attacks continue, what is its leader supposed to do? Abandon them again, or protect them? That moment changed his responsibilities, not his prophethood. He was no longer responsible only for preaching. He was responsible for an entire community, its justice, its security, its survival. That responsibility included defense, not because he became a warlord, because he had become the leader of a nation under God's law. Now the question changes. It is no longer, why did Muhammad fight? It becomes, what would any responsible leader have done? And that question changes everything. When permission finally came, it came with conditions. Fight those who fight you. Do not transgress. Do not let hatred make you unjust. Justice. Even in war. Muhammad wasn't commanding war without limits. He was commanding only what Allah commanded. War under limits, war under law, war under accountability. Even during war, women were not to be deliberately targeted. Children were not to be deliberately targeted. Monks devoted to worship were to be left alone. Crops were not to be destroyed without necessity. Trees were not to be cut without necessity. Promises were to be honored. Treaties were to be respected. Prisoners could be released or ransomed. This wasn't chaos. It was law. Now ask yourself, does this sound like the conduct of a warlord or the responsibilities of a statesman governing a nation under God's law? History called one the Peacemaker. History called the other the Warlord. Yet when peace must be defended, when innocent lives must be protected, when aggression must be stopped, which prophet's example does the world instinctively turn to? The answer explains why the comparison never made sense.